everyone, it's Leandra, and I'm going to be doing a review of the first episode of the second season of Shadowhunters. So this episode is called This Guilty Blood, and right off the bat, I just want to say that this episode is already so much better than what we got in season 1. The entire feel of the show, the look of it, the intensity of it, already seems to have improved a lot. Obviously, we can't say a lot from just one episode, but I am very hopeful for the season, especially considering that in the first season, every episode was always better than the episode before. So I'm just as hopeful for this season and hope that this season can get even better than this first episode that we got. Overall, I really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend anyone who, wasn't maybe too fond of the first season to go and watch it anyway and then make up their own minds about it. There are a couple things that kind of bothered me. We have to separate the TV show from the books at this point, because even though there are certain elements from the books that we all know and love and that have been incorporated into the show very nicely, this show is just kind of detaching itself from the books, sort of sticking with the main kind of skeleton and the idea and the characters, and sort of molding its own storyline onto it. And while I'm not all too fond of it and, wish that they would stick a bit closer to the books, I have sort of started just separating the two of them in my mind. While I am going to still pull a lot of parallels between books and the show, just to compare the two of them, I would like to point out that I'm not going to automatically hate something that they've changed just because they've changed it, because at this point, if we complain about every single thing that they changed, I honestly think that no one would be enjoying this show. I watched the episode twice so far. The second time I was taking some notes while watching it, so I have made a lot of notes for this first episode, and I'm just going to go through them one by one, quickly discussing my opinion, saying why I liked or didn't like certain things, and then hopefully you guys can give me some feedback in the comments and let me know whether you guys felt similarly. Now, this episode deals mainly with the people in the Institute looking for Jace and trying to locate where he is, which is obviously not very possible at the beginning because he's with Valentine on his ship, and also the new leader of the Institute, Aldertree, coming and kind of causing some chaos among the characters that we all know and love. Now, right off the bat, just from the beginning, even the first glimpse that we get from Clary shows us that she already looks so much better as Clary. Her hair is shorter, she seems to be wearing kind of more clothes that are suited to her character. I remember in the first season she wore a lot of sort of nice, flimsy kind of rings and necklaces, and her hair was sort of, done up a tiny bit, and it just doesn't really feel like Clary, In the books, her hair is supposed to be short-ish, not very short, but I think it's medium length. And it's supposed to be kind of unruly, a bit chaotic and never seems to stay in place, And while I understand that they might not want to mess up Kat's hair too much, it does already feel like she has more of a Clary vibe to her. Also, just generally the vibe that we get from her, the sort of, we can tell that her acting has already improved. I'm not going to say that her acting is the best that it could be, because I'm sure that Kat will give us some more surprises in this coming season, but I can already tell you that Clary just seems to feel a lot more like Clary, and that is exactly what I was hoping for. Not only that, but we also see the new intro for the show, which, doesn't really contribute to the show, but it does add to the sort of atmosphere when you're watching it, and I thought it was just great. The music's better, the whole sequence is much cooler and not as weird as the first season. It was just really awesome to see that, even though it's only for 20 seconds, but it really adds to the show and gives it a bit more depth, and it was just really nice to see that. I'm just going to continue talking about other stuff that I really enjoyed. I'm not going to talk about the storyline first. I'm going to talk about just the improvements that I see. So another thing that I'm very, very happy about are the runes. Now, I understand why the show producers felt the need to make the runes look the way they did in the first season, but I just don't really feel like the runes made them look like the Shadowhunters that we love from the book series. Keeping them black just sort of makes them stand out more, kind of marks them more as a Shadowhunter, and it was just really nice to see that, as well as the Seraph blades. Now, I'm a tiny bit confused about the Seraph blades because I believe that in the books, they were always described as glass-like swords. The Seraph blades from this first season, I didn't like them very much. I didn't like the fact that they glowed, and you could tell that the glow that they emanated wasn't really natural. You could tell that there was a light source in the hilt of the sword. So I love these new Seraph blades, and I also felt that it was really awesome that instead of having the glass that sort of lit up, that they'd have the runes etched into the side of it that would glow. I thought that was a really, really great change. I'm still a tiny bit confused because I don't think that they look in any way like the Seraph blades that we know from the books, which are supposed to be made out of glass, but I will take these metal swords that glow any day over these pathetic glassy things that we got in the first season. Now the acting, I know that I already mentioned Clary's acting, but I think that not only do we see an improvement with Clary, we see a great improvement with Jace. This was always my problem in the first season. He didn't really seem to have a kind of personality. Like, you could tell that he was having internal struggles, and I think that Dom just does an amazing job at projecting like inner pain. I noticed that especially in Vampire Academy as well, and he is a great actor. I don't think that it's Dom's fault in any way, because knowing his role from Vampire Academy, I know that the reason why his acting was a bit lacking was probably due to the writing in the first season. But in this season, you can tell he is struggling. There is this darkness in him. You can tell that he's fighting it, he's confused, and he's conflicted, and already that's just so much more of the Jace that we know. And while maybe he will never be the witty, sarcastic, funny guy that we know from the books, he's definitely kind of getting to the point where you can tell that his character in the series is sort of matching up more with the one from the book. Another thing that I want to mention is Izzy. Now, Izzy, she is amazing. She is definitely one of my favorite characters in the books. I do feel like her character in the first season was a bit overdone. I feel like the way that Izzy looks and dresses and sort of acts in this episode was a lot more consistent with the way that she acts and dresses in the books. She loves wearing, you know, things that make her look good. She's very badass and she loves to kick ass. I don't really feel like we saw too much of that in the first season. She was quite sort of promiscuous, and while I'm not in any way saying that there would be anything wrong with anyone else being like that, I just don't think it was a very Izzy thing to do, and it was just really great to see that, especially in that scene where Izzy and Clary are fighting with their wooden sticks. I do not like the Institute. I didn't like it in the first season. I hate the fact that it has a lot of technology and it doesn't really seem to be the church kind of grand castle-like institute that we know from the books. And I much prefer the Institute from the City of Bones movie, but I will work with what I have. I want to say that I'm very, very happy that they added the new room to the Institute. It feels a lot more like the Institute from the books. It feels a lot more grand. It feels a lot more imposing. And while it is still sort of techie, I do feel more of a Institute vibe when we saw the scenes that were filmed in there. Obviously, the Institute will never be the Institute that we know, since the TV show seems to have taken a completely different direction with technology, which I don't necessarily agree with, because in my opinion, Shadowhunters don't like technology, but it's, you know, their own thing, so I guess that was already a great improvement from the Institute. I also really loved the music in this episode, especially the two scenes, first of which the one where Jace is fighting Valentine at the very beginning on his ship, and secondly, of course, the scene where Izzy and Clary are fighting with their wooden sticks. Now, onto the actual content of the episode. First off, I want to say that I really, really, really loved seeing the kind of consequences of Valentine using the mortal cup on the mundanes. It was just very shocking at the very beginning to see them all sort of scattered over the ship, seeing them lay dead. And it just really brought into focus why the Clave doesn't want Valentine to have the cup. Now, obviously in the books, we know, like, you know, humans can die when they drink from the mortal cup, but we don't really see the consequences as well as we could. It just added a bit more depth to Valentine's evilness and the threat that he poses to the Clave and to the Shadowhunters. It was very intense seeing Jace get tortured by Valentine's creatures that he's created. I can't really decide whether this is a good or a bad thing, because while I do remember Valentine being a very sort of strict father who had a lot of weird ideals and who was quite rigid, I don't think that he ever tortured Jace to the extent that he did in the show. It just didn't really fit with his character so well. In addition to that, it was very nice to see Valentine showing his love and affection for Jace. And I think that maybe because the torture scene was right before that, it was sort of nice to see Jace just like being extremely confused about like who Valentine is to him. Is he cruel? Is he nice? I guess it's more of an outward showing of, you know, what we know from the books. Jace not really knowing who Valentine is to him, whether he can trust him. I don't like the fact that Valentine told Jace that he was experimenting with demon blood on him when he was a baby. I thought that was unnecessary. That was a very, very big discovery that Clary and Jace make in the third book, and I didn't like the fact that they brought it out right now. It also sort of takes away from the fact that in the books, Jace sort of starts hating himself, and the darkness that comes out from him is sort of more to do with the fact that he's in love with Clary. He thinks that Clary is his sister. We can see that the show's already taking a different approach now, that they're going to assume that this darkness that comes from Jace is through his assumption that he has demon blood in him. Now, the thing that bothered me most about this episode were two things. The first of which is the appearance of Victor Aldertree. I do not like him. I don't see the relevance of his character in the show. I understand that Victor is supposed to sort of represent, you know, the threat towards Jace, that the Clave wants to, you know, imprison Jace and stuff, which in the books was the Inquisitor and sort of just like the Clave as a whole. I do not really like Victor Aldertree. Obviously, he's not supposed to be likable, but he was just sort of, I don't know, I felt like it was unnecessary. I mean, we already have Lydia there, we have Maris, you know, it was sort of like they just wanted to add another person that we don't like, and boy, was he annoying. The second thing I didn't like was the vampire's den at the very end. I really liked the fighting scene where Jace stakes the vampires. I thought that was really well done. Again, in time to the music was very awesome. But I also felt like it was sort of unnecessary because it almost felt like in Jace's mind it was an evil thing to kill this vampire, even though like you could tell that she was a murderer and that she was evil and she posed a threat. In the books, Shadowhunters have no problems whatsoever killing the vampires that are committing a threat and breaking the Accords. I also didn't really understand why, when she said, "I surrender to the Clave," that would have made some sort of difference. I don't really get that. Like, the Clave just kills unruly vampires. What does that have to do with surrendering to the Authority? Surely surrendering to the Authority means that he could kill her? No? Alright, whatever. Moving on. It was a weird scene. But now I want to get to one of my favorite parts of the show, and that is Simon. Simon. He is by far the best character in the whole show. Alberto read the books. He's very familiar with Simon's character, and you can tell that he is just such a great Simon. He had some really great lines. I wrote some of them down. Oh yeah. First rule of shadow hunting: don't give anyone your phone or Stelle. Or that one scene where he and Clary were running, and then Clary was like, "Simon, run faster!" And he was like, "I'm a vampire. I'm running slow for you." That was just great. That was just wonderful. But I think my absolute favorite line of Simon was when he was like, "Oh, you don't want to touch me. Incanto." It was just really great seeing Simon try out his vampire powers, and it was even funnier seeing him fail to do so because, as we all know, Simon is a bit helpless, even as a vampire. Now, I got two more things to mention, the first of which is Malik, Magnus and Alec. You can already tell that the start of the relationship troubles is sort of coming about by, you know, Alec sort of pushing Magnus away, and it was just really nice to see that. Now, before you think, what? Why does she want Malik to have relationship troubles? Doesn't she love them? Yes, I love Malik. Malik is awesome. I totally ship Malik, but I felt like in the first season, the relationship was very rushed to satisfy the sort of Malik audience. Everything just seemed so perfect. The kiss was done very fast, and the relationship progressed. I didn't really feel like they built up the chemistry enough. Obviously, as book readers, we feel the chemistry already, like, without the show because, like, we know that they're a great couple, but it was just really nice to see them sort of struggle in their relationship and have to, like, take baby steps and learn some things about being in a relationship as well. It's probably the first relationship that Alec has ever had. It is definitely also the first genuine relationship that Magnus has, so it was really nice to see that. And I feel like the relationship will definitely grow over the show. It will experience problems, and you know that's fine because regular relationships have problems. Now, the ending. While I didn't really understand the vampire I surrendered to the Clave business, I did like the ending. It was very intense. It was very fast. It felt like, obviously it was a tiny bit rushed, but I really liked that because it was a situation that was very dangerous for, you know, Jace and Valentine, and he had to make a split-second decision. He could either go with Valentine into the portal and save him, or he could save himself and go with his friends. And I feel like it added a nice sort of twinge again to the show because obviously we want it to seem like Jace is actually choosing Valentine over the others because of his self-loathing. And it was just really nice to see that. I know a lot of people complained that it felt very rushed, and it was very rushed and it was very difficult to understand what was happening. I rewinded it twice, I think, but I feel like because it was so rushed, it showed Jace's split-second decision and sort of his ultimate decision to follow Valentine and save him. It was very intense, and I'm actually very excited for the next episode. Overall, I would give this episode an A-. I think A minus, B plus, probably A minus. It was very, very well done. I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely very excited for the next episode and the episodes to come, but I guess we'll have to see for next episode. Let me know what your thoughts were. Let me know in the comments whether you have any other dislikes or likes, whether you agree or disagree with me, and then hopefully we can have a nice discussion. I will see you all with another video very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!